So ultrasonic flow meters, they've got an important role to play when it comes to monitoring both clean and wastewater pipelines, maybe other assets as well. And that's mainly they can help highlight sort of abnormalities in performance. Is that right?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, what you need visibility as to what's going on in the pipelines. I mean, if we think about PR19, AMP7 that we're currently in, I mean, obviously the key issues there are that we need to reduce leakage by 16%. 30% reduction in pollution incidents. You can't manage if you don't measure. And we either have a situation where there are lots and lots of network pipes that have no metering on them, or that the metering is 10, 20, maybe even 30 years old and quite frequently is dead. If it's not dead, then it's quite questionable exactly how well it's performing. You can't manage that leakage and you can't hope to achieve that reduction in pollution if you haven't got the tools at your disposal to actually monitor, trend, see what output effects your programs of changes are having on the output. And of course, you know, conventionally, to install meters, you're going to create a interruption to your supply. You're going to have to cut the pipe, install some flanges, possibly a chamber, and that all again doesn't sit comfortably with PR19 AMP7, where we're supposed to be looking at a 41% decrease in supply interruptions. So there's clamp-on's place in this situation. It's the AMP7 conundrum. How do I do this? Well, you can do it with clamp-on. Problem is, we still have a lot of water companies who treat clamp-on with a great deal of suspicion. Probably a bit longer answer than you were expecting. But
no, that's good. And so to reduce, so the non-invasive aspect is important, yep, as you say, because it minimizes supply interruptions, and also the actual information. So it's data logging that is, so they're producing data of what's happening now. You maybe make some changes and then it'll tell you the effect of those, hopefully the positive impact of those changes. Is that?
Yeah, the clamp-on meter will give you real-time dynamic data. It's quite possible that the network that the water company is using might not be using that in real time. It might be that they're connecting to a third-party device, a Metasphere or a Technolog, this sort of thing, that might be sending 15-minute intervals. But anyway, we can generate data instantaneously. Another reason why they might be using something like a data transmission device is it might be a remote site. Remote sites is still the problem for clamp-on, because you do get battery-powered mag meters, and to this date we don't currently have a battery-powered clamp-on meter. It's something that would be highly desirable, and maybe one day we'll get there. But you know, if you're using, for example, solar power, yes, that will power our meter, but you still need to be able to send the data if you haven't got a site connected to a network. And so that's where battery-powered things like the Metasphere or Technolog devices and others will send that data onwards.
Okay, and in terms of in operation, I know the recent WEM exhibition, I think you did a joint presentation with Anglian Water. So it'd be good to understand, sort of talk us through that. So first up, what was the situation? What was the problem they had, you know, before yourselves got involved?
Well, Anglian's a nice case study because we've been working with them for 6 years. And when we started out with them, they were no different to any other water company, highly suspicious of clamp-on. Their experience with clamp-on had been anything other than joyful. They'd had an awful lot that didn't work or was unreliable, or the results, if it was installed by person or company A versus person or company B, you could get completely different results. So a lot of skepticism, and the first 2 or 3 years of our work was nothing other than proving to them that this was a device that was not the same as the clamp-ons that they had previously experienced. And that's a difficult concept, because at the end of the day, especially purchasers will look at it and go, it's a clamp-on, it's the same as everyone else, they've all got the same specs. It's not true. In reality, there's an awful lot that goes on underneath the bonnet that will cater for pipes that are far from perfect. I mean, we work in the chemical industry, work in the oil and gas industry. You know exactly what the pipe is. You know exactly what you're contending with. Water, we might have Edwardian, we might have Victorian pipes. We might have pipes that have been left in really bad condition. And so you have to overcome the challenges of signals that are not perfect. But we're a company that only does clamp-on. So 100% of our R&D goes into clamp-on to create ultimately what we hope is the best clamp-on that you can possibly get. So we went through this process with Anglian. After the first 2 or 3 years, and this was all with their wastewater applications where they had really big challenges, so sewage pumping stations, things of that nature. After 2 or 3 years of very good success, it was a case of, wait a minute, could we adopt this within the clean water networks? And there, it's not so much the challenging application, it's more a case of we don't have the data. We have insufficient metering, we need more metering. How the hell do we put it in without, massive cost escalations? And so we started working with the clean water network teams, installing meters. One of the key things was Keith King, who's very senior in this clean water network role, came up with the concept of a coffin chamber. Now, normally we think of a chamber as something where you can go in, put a person inside, maintain a flow meter device or any device. But no, the coffin chamber here is all about lowest cost installation. So they dig a hole. We install our meter around the pipe that's in that hole. Then a low cost plastic chamber is built around the pipe and around the flow meter. And that itself is filled with pea shingle. So we're not expecting someone to go in. The pea shingle there is packing and protecting their asset, the pipe, and their other asset, the flow meter. That's capped off and then the whole thing is buried. And that has meant that instead of chambers with bypasses, with valves, and obviously the bigger you go in size, the more expensive this gets. But you're talking about chambers that are at least 30 to 50,000 pounds. When we get to the really big pipes, 1.5 meters, 1.8 meters, anecdotal evidence from other water companies that I've worked with, for example, in the north of England, £250,000. And what we're doing is putting in a meter that, is certainly, depending on what type of specification it is, it's going to be anywhere less than 5,000 to a maximum of £20,000. Then the chamber, you're talking a maximum cost of 30 to 50,000 pounds, which just means it's an enabler. It enables them to put more meters in more quickly. And bear in mind, every one of these installations is without an outage. So it's a win-win in so many ways. And the nice thing that was reported at that WEM presentation that we jointly gave with Anglian last month was that, in 6 years, they've had 0 failures. And that gives a lot of confidence.
So, I mean, there you've outlined how it works and the sort of major financial benefit. But in terms of what they were wanting to do, whether it's with the wastewater pipes to start with or clean water, have they been able also to sort of improve performance via the data that your ultrasonic flow meters are providing to any sort of information around that?
Yeah, well, that's a tricky one. I mean, obviously they own that sort of data, and they are the ones who are data crunching to get improvements. I can only assume, and maybe I should do a little bit more investigation, but they continue to buy meters at the same rate that they have been, and that's really escalated in the last 2 years or so, which in my view means that we're obviously delivering good results for them. You'd like to think that that continues. I mean, and certainly everyone's already looking towards AMP8, PR22. I guess that maybe there'll be a move back towards wastewater because CSO, combined sewage outfalls, that's going to be a really big focus in the future. DWMPs, your drainage and wastewater management plans, there's got to be a plan in. I mean, obviously we've had so much bad publicity about wastewater in the media over the last year or two, and record fines that have never been witnessed before. I mean, and that's only going to continue a pace. So I'd like to think that we continue to be part of that that journey on wastewater, but even on clean water. I mean, abstraction metering that gets a focus in the next AMP. So yeah, I just think that there is a very big case for clamp on within the water industry. There's still a lot of resilient companies who, my experience is bad. We still need to hopefully encourage them to take a chance and to do trials and to prove the benefits that they can receive.
Yeah, you mentioned there the interesting. I mean, we won't go into the politics of the all of the sewage that is going into rivers from, as you say, CSOs, etc. But in terms of the opportunity from I mean, first up, they can be used if properly installed in the right sort of places to give an early warning of potential overspills, and therefore water companies can take direct action. And secondly, am I right in thinking that they can also use the data, so that sort of real-time use of data? They can also
Absolutely.
use the data, compile it, and then maybe understand what's going wrong, and then maybe undertake some capital works to redesign part of the infrastructure to improve it. So just where do flow meters have a role to play, I guess?
Yeah, you got two things. I mean, on the clean networks, basically we're looking for leakage, and I think that what you really need is a meter that can measure the lowest flows, because you can't detect leakage during the day when there's so much water operation going on. You're looking for night flows, and you're looking for the smallest changes, but there's something that's unexpected and that basically indicates that there is a leak. And I know that there are many other leakage technologies out there, low cost acoustic loggers and things like this, but a discrete flow measurement and that can measure at the lowest night flows will give you genuine leakage information. Now, we measured down to 0.01 meters per second, and that is actually a better low flow rate measurement than even the traditional conventional inline technologies will achieve. So that's your clean water networks. But on the wastewater, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're looking to, as you said, to avoid incidents. I mean, again, we go back to our first engagement with water back, in 2016, and we were told that this company, probably best not mentioning names, but they had in a storm situation where we've got inundation and maybe multiple sewage pumping stations are in alarm. Where do you send your resources first? If you've got 20 sewage pumping stations in alarm, you go perhaps to the most historically challenging site. But in this instance, this water company said to us, we go to the wrong site. Meanwhile, a major supermarket is having a flood going on in its car park, and we're into a substantial fine. So you're trying to overcome the practical issues of day-to-day operation and upsetting the local community and getting financial penalties, quite aside from just managing your network and making sure that everything stays safe and secure. But yeah, if you've got the metering there, if you've got the real data, you know which sewage pumping station to go to, you know which one to address before it becomes an incident.
And in terms of where we're at, because the water industry is portrayed as being fairly traditional, etc. I mean, with the opportunities for your ultrasonic flow meters and just sort of using data more generally, are we still in the relatively early days? Are we beginning to just thoughts on that? I mean, I do a bit of work in the IT industry, and they're talking about AI and data analytics have been donkey's years. Water industries, maybe it's a bit newer, but where are we and where do we need to be, if that's a reasonable question?
I'm still in the very early days of what we're achieving in the UK. I mean, there's so much more to do. I mean, obviously, I am aware that we have competitors. Some are better than others, but I would say that generally, ultrasonics has not made that leap that we have made with one company, which is Anglian. Anglian have basically had that light bulb moment and have realized what they can achieve. We have not achieved that level of open-mindedness by other companies, and that's a mixture of us communicating the message to the wider community, overcoming people's perceived reluctance and frustration. I mean, there is another company, again, I commercially, I probably have to keep them nameless, but who we are not a framework holder with, and who have applied clamp on from their framework holder, and it hasn't worked. And we've ended up stepping in, and we have worked. It's a difficult thing to communicate. When everyone blankets everything as clamp-on, one technology, it doesn't work. No, it's not entirely true. There are clamp-ons and there are clamp-ons. You know, I mean, we are the only clamp-on manufacturer who is certified for safety critical duties in the UK nuclear industry. And our Berlin manufactured meters, we've got more than 100 across the nuclear estates throughout the UK. So, you know, it's high integrity metering. It is different to an awful lot of other clamp-on. Every time you fly on an Airbus, the Airbus fleet is maintained using our meters for leakage detection in the hydraulics. So there are some clamp-ons that quite literally, as you clamp them to the pipe, as you change your clamping force, you will see the flow rate change. That doesn't give anyone any confidence. I've seen clamp-on meters that are random numbered generators. I mean, this is the problem. We have to overcome the fact that there is probably more than 50 clamp-on manufacturers out there, and not all of them are equal.
Okay, but do you think there is, I mean, bear in mind the, as you say, the likely focus for investments moving forward, whether it's on the wastewater side or the leakage side, do you think there's a massive opportunity here, and therefore are you excited and or frustrated? Because as you say, the legacy you've got to overcome, but is you know, ultrasonic flow meters, are they the more or less the only or the most elegant way for the companies to address this situation, or
no, I mean, if we talk about wastewater, I mean, there's a whole load of applications in wastewater that we can't even address. I mean, an awful lot of wastewater is open channel flow. So, you know, there's room here for multiple technologies to solve the bigger picture. But no, am I excited or frustrated? I'm both. I'm excited. Our journey in 6 years has been amazing. The growth has just been astronomical. But are we really penetrating the market, or are we scratching the surface? At the moment, we're still scratching the surface. There's so much more to be done, and yeah, it is exciting and frustrating in equal measure. But that's the nature of any instrumentation company. You know, you have to go on a journey, build people's trust. And a salesman's going to tell you wonderful things. A salesman is always going to tell you wonderful things, and sometimes salespeople can't be believed. I'd like to think that people could believe me, but fundamentally, the product is what tells the story. And if the product works well, and Anglian, 6 years, no failures, you know, that's selling. That's what gives confidence, and that's a message we have to communicate to a wider community.
Okay, and maybe just as we finish, in terms of, you know, we're just about to start 2023, as it seems only a moment ago the year started. But what are you looking forward to, either in the water industry, opportunities for you, or, and then, I mean, by, you know, extension, therefore FLEXIM, what are your thoughts, again, without giving away any secrets, but, you know, your plans as a company? More, you just got to patiently build up that trust with water companies and wait for them to come to you, or are there more things you can do? Just, yeah, thoughts on the next year.
We need to do more things like this, where we communicate what we can achieve, what benefits we can bring. We are missing a component in the picture. We are limited by the fact we don't have battery powered. If I had a wish list, I wish for a battery powered clamp-on meter. I don't think it's anytime soon, but I think it will come eventually. And I think a battery powered meter will genuinely unlock benefits. At the moment, you have water companies who would like to, well, if we talk about Anglian, because it's, you know, it was in the public domain last month, so I don't think I'm talking out of turn, but, you know, for them, they've made this transition. If they have a clean water network meter that they require on any pipe from 150 millimeters or above, the message at the moment is fit to FLEXIM. That is, as long as there is mains power. There are loads of applications that are stuck in a field that, you know, sort of 10 acres down there, and we can't address those without solar, and we all know that solar is very intermittent in the UK. So battery powered, if we could get a battery powered meter, that would unlock an awful lot more applications, and it makes life a lot easier for the water company, because then they can start, just instead of like that solution for that application, that solution, they can just literally say, here is a solution, works where we need it. So that's basically my wish list for the future. Whether it's 3 years, whether it's 5 years, at some point if we can crack that nut, I think we can really bring even greater benefits to the water industry.
Okay, well, it's been lovely to chat, and I really appreciate the time you're giving, Andy. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for your time.